It was just another quiet morning in the neighborhood. Birds chirped, leaves rustled in the gentle breeze, and the world seemed calm. But then something strange appeared right outside the Parker family's front door, a rusty old cage. Inside it sat a huge German shepherd, trembling and scared. What made this sight even more shocking was that the first one to notice it was an adult. It was little Noah, barely 2 years old, wrapped in his pink baby blanket. Noah had crawled toward the front porch before anyone realized he was even out his crib. He looked into the cage with wide, curious eyes and did something so unexpected, so pure, that it changed everything. By the time his parents reached him, the dog had stopped shaking and was gently licking the baby's tiny hand. What happened next brought tears to every eye in the neighborhood and began a story no one would ever forget. The morning sun filtered softly through the curtains as Emily Parker prepared breakfast. Her husband, David, was still upstairs, getting ready for work, and everything felt like a normal day until she heard the front door creak open. "Noah?" she called, a chill running through her. She dropped the spatula and rushed toward the entrance. Her heart raced as she stepped outside, only to freeze at the sight before her. There, right on their front lawn, sat a large metal cage, old and dented, with rust clinging to the bars like dried blood. Inside it was a German shepherd, curled up tightly, its fur matted and eyes full of fear. But even more shocking was her baby boy, Noah, in his pink baby blanket, sitting right next to the cage, his chubby hand gently reaching through the bars. Emily's scream caught in her throat. She dashed forward. "Noah, no!" But before she could scoop him up, the German shepherd lifted its head and looked straight into her eyes. It didn't growl. It didn't bark. It just stared, sadly, silently. Emily slowed down. Something about the dog's gaze wasn't threatening. It was pleading. By now, David had come running out, stunned by the bizarre scene. Who would leave a dog like this?" he muttered. Noah was giggling, reaching to the bars again, and the dog, without hesitation, gently licked his tiny fingers. Emily gasped. But the act was so tender, so careful, it looked more like the dog was thanking him. The couple exchanged a look of confusion and concern. David knelt beside the cage, inspecting it. There's no note, no collar, nothing. Emily touched the side of the cage. It was ice cold, like it had been out all night. The dog looked thin, too thin for its size. And yet, despite its clear suffering, it wasn't aggressive. Emily noticed something else. Tears. Not hers, not David's. But the dog's eyes, they were watery, filled with pain and a kind of sorrow that pierced her heart. "Noah found him," she whispered, "and he wasn't even scared." David nodded. It's like he knew this dog needed him. They stood there for a few moments, unsure of what to do. The neighbors began to peek through windows, some stepping outside. David turned to his wife. "We can't just leave him here. We need to get him out." "But he's huge. What if—" "Noah trusts him," David said. "That means something." And with that, David slowly unlatched the cage. The German shepherd didn't leap or bolt. He simply stepped out and did something that stopped both parents in their tracks. He walked straight to Noah, lowered his head, and gently pressed his nose to the baby's forehead. In that moment, the Parker family knew this wasn't just a rescue. This was fate. The German shepherd stood still beside baby Noah, tail low, eyes soft. Emily couldn't stop staring. It was like the dog had waited his entire life for this moment, for someone to finally notice him, to care. David gently picked Noah up, who whimpered in protest. The dog whined softly, too, already missing the baby's presence. Neighbors slowly gathered at the edge of the sidewalk, whispering and pointing. Some were concerned. Others were just curious. But no one claimed the dog. Emily took a deep breath. "We can't leave him outside like this. Let's bring him in." Inside the house, they made space in the living room. David brought a blanket for the dog to lie on. Noah toddled over and sat right next to him, placing a small hand on the dog's paw. The German shepherd didn't flinch. He leaned in closer. They called animal control and local shelters. No one had reported a missing dog. No microchip. No tags. just a broken cage and broken spirit. Emily watched her baby and the dog lying peacefully together. "He needs a name," she said. David smiled. "Let's call him Shadow. He's already following Noah everywhere like one." Shadow didn't eat much that day. He seemed too weak. But he never left Noah's side, not even when the baby napped. It was like he felt responsible for him, like he had a purpose now. That night, Emily found herself staring at Shadow. "Why would anyone lock you in a cage and leave you outside our house?" she whispered. There was no answer, but deep inside, she knew this was no accident. Shadow was meant to be there. Over the next few days, Shadow started to regain strength. His appetite returned, his fur began to shine a little more, and he even wagged his tail. But something remained off. He would sometimes stare at the door for hours or bolt upright in the middle of the night, growling at shadows. The trauma hadn't left him. One night, David found a small metal tag stuck deep under Shadow's collarbone area, almost fused to the skin with old dry blood. It looked like someone had tried to remove a chip violently. The number on the tag was barely legible, but David wrote it down. He called a friend at a local vet hospital and ran the number. What came back was shocking. Shadow had once belonged to a military veteran, Sergeant Ethan Rayner, who had died in an accident a year ago. The file listed Shadow as decommissioned to be relocated, but there were no follow-up records. No name of any adoption center. Nothing. David sat back, stunned. This dog, he was a war dog. They began digging further. They found photos online. Shadow beside Sergeant Rayner in uniform. Medals. Missions. A hero. Emily stared at the dog now lying by her baby, peacefully watching cartoons with him. "He's not just protecting Noah," she whispered. "He's trained to protect." The thought chilled her and warmed her heart at the same time. Noah had found a guardian, and Shadow had found his reason to live again. Weeks passed. Shadow became part of the family. He played in the yard, slept by Noah's crib, and seemed to have found peace. But one night changed everything. Emily had just put Noah to bed when Shadow suddenly growled from the living room. Not the playful kind, but low, threatening, protective. Then he barked, loud and sharp. David rushed to check. Shadow was at the front door, muscles tense, teeth bared. "Someone's out there," David whispered. He grabbed a flashlight and opened the door slowly. No one in sight, just the wind and empty road. Then he saw it, tire tracks, fresh ones, leading away from their driveway. The next morning, they found a piece of broken mirror on the grass, clearly from a vehicle. Emily's heart dropped. What if someone was watching? What if they want him back? David nodded grimly. "If they do, they'll have to get through us." That day, they installed cameras. They reported the strange activity to the police. Still, something felt unfinished. Why had Shadow been dumped in front of their house in the first place? That night, Shadow didn't sleep. He paced the hall like a soldier on duty. And at 3:12 a.m., the cameras caught a dark SUV circling their street, twice. 2 nights later, the family woke to sirens and lights. Police had caught a man sneaking through a neighbor's yard, armed and dressed in black. He had pictures of dogs, of Noah, of Shadow. He was part of an underground ring that sold retired war dogs illegally after staging their disposal. Shadow had escaped, or someone had left him at the Parker house out of guilt. When they brought the man to the station, Shadow stood beside the officers like he understood everything. Calm, watchful, protective. The family was advised that Shadow would be taken for evidence and review, but something remarkable happened. The police chief, a former K-9 handler, watched the footage of Shadow with Noah. He saw the bond, the protection, the love, and he made the call. Shadow was allowed to stay, with full custody granted to the Parker family. Emily cried. David hugged Shadow tightly. And Noah, little Noah, ran to him, wrapping his arms around his neck. Shadow licked his cheek. From that moment on, he wasn't just a dog. He was family, a guardian, a protector, a hero, and all because a baby wanted a front porch and reached out with a tiny hand.